All right, now on Zero Block 30, I'm pleasured to have Jenna Burkert, who is an Army wrestler. She's up at Colorado Springs right now, still doing training, although it's COVID season, so some of the training has gone down. But you are probably one of the sick fucks out there who actually really likes training. Like, I think most military people are like, no PT for 6 months. Fuck yeah. But you probably are super disappointed.
Yeah, I invested in the home gym early, so I've been pretty lucky.
Yeah, I mean, the home gym thing is no joke. I just recently bought a water rower. Check this out, a little water rower.
No,
And
there.
trying to find like a beach cruiser at the beginning of COVID was impossible. I mean, they were so expensive and they were nowhere to be found. What can you do at home that mimics? You just really focus on cardio?
I mean, I try to get my wife to wrestle me if she will, but that's usually a no. You know, my neighbors look at me like I'm crazy doing some type of stance in motion in my yard. But yeah, wrestling's a big cardio sport, so I try to do a lot of aerodyne, and if I'm feeling up to it, I try to run.
Your wife ever get sick of you trying to fight her?
All the time. Like, I don't know how to hug normal. I just go for like an underhook. So that's their lifestyle for sure.
But that's kind of nice though. Like I like it when my wife and I am the little spoon, even though I'm a bigger guy. I like to be the little spoon and her to dig like her heels into my hips and pull me back. I like that.
For sure. Yeah. Every time I'm like, see, I could throw you from here. I'm like, if you just let me.
Right. Like, babe, I know you could. I know you could. You don't have to prove it to me anymore.
We get it.
So how is life for you? Is your wife in the service as well, or is she just dependent on base?
Just a good old dependent. No. But she's very involved in the sport world. So she's the director of marketing for the Athlete Performance Solutions, which is like APS Nike Wrestling. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah. So prior to that, she worked for USA Wrestling, and she was the like global marketing person there. And so she's very involved in the sports world. That's how we met. So she's very used to that kind of active lifestyle.
And obviously, you're a very accomplished wrestler. You have been on multiple national teams. You're on the Army full-time team. When did wrestling start for you? Is that something that you've done since you were a child, or did you get into it a little bit later in life?
Goodness, yeah. So I'm 26 or 27 now, and I've been wrestling since I was 6 years old. Just kind of picked it up out of the blue. You know, no one in my family wrestled. My brother's autistic, and he's 5 years older than me. So I attribute a lot of my just that rough around the edges lifestyle to him. You know, we didn't grow up playing any board games or things like that, but we would wrestle all the time. So it was a very natural sport for me. So yeah, I've been doing it pretty much my whole life.
When you went to high school, did they have like a women's wrestling team at your high school, or did you go up against the dudes, or how did that work out?
No, yeah. So I wrestled boys my whole life, and well, up until I was 15 years old. And then I made a cadet team where I went over to El Salvador. I won that competition. And from there, I kind of was introduced to the United States Olympic Education Center, which is in Marquette, Michigan. And they invited me there. They said it would be something like my senior year in high school that I would go live out there. But then a spot opened up. And so my sophomore year in high school, I packed up by myself. Like, I moved up to northern Michigan, lived on the campus there. So that was a really hard experience, but it paid off. But so from that point on, I wrestled women, and I was on that like junior and senior age level. So, but I did grow up, you know, I'm from New York, so I had to wrestle boys. I'm not from a state where you have girls wrestling.
That is unbelievable. I can't imagine. My kid is 15. I can't imagine her being like, all right, I'm going to go and do full-time tuba in Northern Michigan. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. It took a lot of hustling to win over my dad. And I just thought it would be something like, well, I was like, well, if I hate it, I'll just quit. And then I got there and I hated it. And I was like, well, there's no way I'm quitting. Like, I got to stick this one through.
Right. Especially after all that talk that it takes to get to that point when you're there. You're a young lady and you're in El Salvador. Anything crazy going through your mind? Like, what am I doing? I'm in El Salvador wrestling.
You know, it was like my first real experience in another country, and you just kind of like see how that world is, and it's so different to the lifestyle I grew up in Rocky Point, New York. But my mom did come with me, and I was with the other, the rest of my teammates, and it was really eye-opening to see like how less fortunate these guys, how they were, and just it's humbling. And And I always love to see these countries, from Brazil and El Salvador, and they don't have much, but man, do these guys work hard, and they're
Yeah.
producing medals too. So it just shows like you don't need everything to accomplish your goals.
Yeah, it's not one of those sports like swimming, like if you look at most places that are really good in swimming, they're pretty affluent. In order to have a super huge Olympic sized pool, you have to have a little bit of money. A wrestling mat's not the same. Like you can go out into the dirt and just get down with it. So basically anywhere you're at, you can wrestle. I think that's a great thing. And we had Bobby Lashley. Do you know Bobby?
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah, WWE Superstar, and he actually had the pipeline where he was in the Army and for a wrestling. Was your career kind of like his, where the Army scouted you and said, "Hey, we'll pay you to wrestle too"?
You know, similar but also different. Like those guys really paved the way so that I could even have the opportunity that I have. They worked hard, and like WCAP, the World Class Athlete Program, developed from being a part of all Army sports. And so I came in, I was living out in Colorado at the training center, realized it wasn't my favorite of fits. It can be a little political.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had talked to the Army coaches, and, everyone who was the best in the country was a part of the Army WCAP team. And I was like, hold up, you guys are doing exactly what I'm doing, and you guys are getting paid. Like, that's what I need to do,
Yeah.
Otherwise
I don't want to go work at Wendy's. I want to get a decent little paycheck.
Yeah. I need to be able to get these burgers on a consistent basis. Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing about Olympic sports. It's crazy. It's like you have to, you are surviving from tournament to tournament. So if you get injured and you're out for a year, like, sorry, Charlie.
Right. I can't even imagine. And then when you're going through there, like, because you have to go to regular boot camp too. So when you show up and you've been training with the Army team and you show up at boot camp, any special treatment, or did you feel like you had a little bit an up and up on what to expect?
Like, I try to go with an open mind. I was told a lot to like basically don't tell anyone you're a WCAP wrestler. They're gonna like be picking on you.
They probably knew since you're in pretty fucking good shape. I mean, they probably had an idea.
It took until the first PT test, like the 1-1-1, and I think I did like 49 push-ups in like a minute because it was just the 1-1-1. And I remember my drill sergeant walking around me, and she was like, "Who the hell are you?" And she's like looking at my ear, and I'm just like, "Oh no, I'm just like, I work out occasionally." And she's like, "Yeah, well, why do you have like these, messed up cauliflower ears?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh yeah, I mean, I do wrestle."
We had a dude that I went to boot camp with who got kicked out of the Naval Academy like a semester before they were supposed to graduate. He was on the cross country team there and got in trouble for cheating. So he had to enlist in order to not pay all of his money back. Well, when he was on the cross country team at the Naval Academy, so he was running 3 miles in like right around 15 minutes. And the first PT test that we took, and he finished at like 15:10 or something like that. And the drill instructors were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. Yeah. Then they started asking who I was. And I remember, this one drill sergeant, he was like actively looking up the wrestling team and started to see like, what I placed at all these tournaments. And I was like, oh, well, secret's out now.
Yeah. So after you get done with basic training, what your MOS, your supply, right?
Yeah.
So do you have to do that much, or are you just out in Colorado doing your own thing, or do they make you actually go in there like, okay, go count the flak jackets?
So I try to do both, because I don't want to like basically not know anything about my MOS. So I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of people around Fort Carson where I can kind of go and like see what they're doing so that, someday when I have to do it, I can do it. But right now I'm currently on orders to basically try to win world and Olympic medals. So wrestling's what I do, but my MOS is still the unit supply specialist.
So a day-to-day for somebody on your team, what does that look like right now?
I mean, prior to like COVID, it's like normal formations every day. We go to that, kind of see what's going to be the game plan for the week from the commander, the first sergeant. And then from there, we go and like do our cleaning, and then we'll go to do our practice, and then cleaning afterwards. And then it's like staying up to date on any type of online trainings, medical, things like that. And then from there, we would get ready for our, like, go home for like an hour for lunch, and then come back and do your second workout. And pretty much that. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it pretty Army discipline style where you have like a lot of rank structure, or is it a little bit more relaxed?
I would say now it's a lot more like the rank structure. I think there's a lot of good like leaders in the room that want to make sure we don't like get too comfortable and complacent. Because it's, you know, it's easy to do so and think like, oh, wrestling's my world or whatever sport is your world. And so we've got some like a good sergeant first class and staff sergeants in the room that, you know, keep us in line and make sure that we know that we're soldiers first and wrestlers second.
Yeah, that's great. I think that that's the best way to do it, because you might have to stay in, like you can't wrestle forever, right? Like, so having like a nice little career backup is not a bad option for you either.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you know, when I initially joined, it was heavily wrestling mindset. And then as I went through the system and went to different schools, I realized, oh man, I kind of like it. Like, it's pretty easy for me to succeed, you know, like I'm pretty smart, I'm athletic, and like, you know, I can listen to people. And so I found that like, you know, I like to be able to lead soldiers and kind of like lead by example. And so, you know, I do have the mindset of life after wrestling.
And for you and your wife, has there been any big adjustments for you guys in the COVID of like being around each other more often? Because my wife works from home, so like we're always around each other. That's probably why you're getting more antsy and wanting to go to battle a little bit more with her.
Exactly. Yeah. So once she stopped working at USA Wrestling, she was working from home. So she's got a really awesome job where she's just, you know, always on the computer, like virtual. She's been doing the COVID lifestyle. So it was me that basically, like, once Fort Carson was like, all soldiers are being like, you have to stay inside for that, you know, end of March until April. And then by May we were transitioning back and we'd been quarantined. So it was very weird. And it was like mentally challenging because the beginning of April was supposed to be Olympic trials. So that kind of mental impact was difficult. Like, okay, well, I'm not wrestling. When am I going to wrestle? You know, there was much more uncertainty in the beginning of quarantine. You know, we thought Olympic trials might just get pushed till June. And so now our Olympic trials are pushed until April of 2021.
Wow. And I imagine in this job, you have, like, I was a canine handler, so we would go do demonstrations at school and show the kids the dogs and things like that. I imagine being a part of the Army wrestling team, that's a big part of it too, is being out in the community. And I'm sure that the impact of little girls and little boys seeing you on this team, it's almost like a superhero type of, they're like, whoa, not only is she a wrestler, but she's a wrestler for the Army. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, people just realize there's a lot more that you can do. And we adamantly go on these, we call them tear missions. And we basically just go to high schools and, you know, kind of what you were saying, we'll do wrestling clinics. Sometimes I'll go to the state tournament and just walk around. And then we do another thing called total soldier enhancement training. And that's where we have like units around Fort Carson, or sometimes we go there as well, and they'll come into our room and we basically show them how to use what we use to be better soldiers in the field, you know, all that mental training that we do, and we implement it for them. And we, you know, it's been proven that like pretty much any unit that we've seen and showed them kind of like our techniques, you know, because it's different than just going to the gym and, you know, doing some bench presses.
Right.
Like, yeah. So there's been a lot of success with Army WCAP going there, and especially with the wrestling team. You know, we're on a lot of these T-sets and tears because it's such an intense sport, but there is a lot to translate to just normal soldiers and things like that. So yeah, we're constantly around Fort Carson and going, you know, state to state really.
And I imagine just normal workouts for you guys, like what wrestling shaped notoriously, like some of the best conditioned athletes in the world. When you see them make the jump to like the UFC, the wrestlers can often dominate. One reason because of cardio. I imagine there's a huge advantage of if you go to a joint service school or you go to something like that and you guys are together, for you going on a little ruck for a couple miles, not going to kick your ass comparatively to most other people.
Yeah, wrestling is one of the sports that really trains you for everything. And then like the mind game of the sport, you know, like we're a weight class discipline sport, you know, like people always have this like misconception, like, you know, they're like, oh, if you just drink water,
God,
you're
I
fine.
bet the people there are so annoying, like with their fucking salmon and coming in with their carrots and shit.
They're like, if you drink, there's 0 calories in water. I'm like, yes, my guy, but it's 16 ounces, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I weigh in an hour, I can't drink this, you know?
Yeah. The things that you have to focus on. I bet that, I would say of all the things, not necessarily being in the Army or being active duty, the diet that you have to keep has got to be what drives your spouse insane.
Yeah, it was insane for me before I met my wife. You know, I felt like I did all the things nutritionally wrong. I was on the mindset of, oh, I make weight and then I can binge eat and then I'll just lose the weight next time. And she's really implemented this like constant lifestyle of eating better. And it's really saved like my life in the sense of my sport, because I don't think I would be competing still if I hadn't, you know, met my wife 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Because, yeah, you know, she just truly helped me with that, because I just was having such a hard time making weight, and basically wrestling and my job became miserable. And so now when I'm, you know, prior to COVID, I'm typically walking around my weight class just a kilo over. So I don't have that stress anymore. You know, I just have to like be diligent, you know?
Well, it must be strange to be able to talk to your wife about gaining weight. It must be strange. Most of us aren't in that position to where we can bring it up. So, Jenna, I want to thank you for joining us on Zero Block 30. It's always a pleasure to have somebody like you. Thank you for what you're doing and the example that you are to many young women and young boys out there. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity.